Hello everyone. Today we are going to take a close look at your online test review 3. So for review 3, let's take a look at the very first one, which is from the blanks of your closed test. So let's take a look at the very first one for number 11. So for number 11, here it says, many people used to believe that to be an elite runner, you had to eat meat and other animal products. So, in other words, many people used to believe that a good runner must be someone who eats meat and other animal products. But, as you know, after you read this passage, you know that a vegan runner could also be a good runner. So that's why here in the sentence we choose, if it were not for successful vegan runners such as Fiona Oakes, this idea might still be widely believed. So as we know, we used to think that a good runner must be a meat eater, but actually it is not. So this idea might still be widely believed, but actually it is not. So that's why for this sentence, we're talking about something not real right now. So that's why we will use the sentence pattern like this. If it were not for successful vegan marathon runners, this idea might still be widely believed. So we use the sentence pattern to talk about something not real now. And if you still remember, for the phrase, if it were not for, if you want to make it easy, you can just use the word like without, but for. And also, you can also try to change the sequence of the word here. If you take a look at your grammar book, there will be a variation like this. We omit the word if, so that's why we had to move the be verb or auxiliary verb to the beginning. Then there will be word it not for, okay, word it not for. So were it not for successful vegan runners, this idea might still be widely believed, but actually we don't believe this kind of thing anymore. Then let's move on to number 15. So here it says, Oaks was no stranger to what? So if you say someone or something was no stranger to what? Was not a stranger to what? Which means this person is quite familiar with what? Or this person is used to what? So in this case, was no stranger to what? So which means Oaks is used to what? Or Oaks is familiar with what? So for number 15, we know this person tried to make a lot of efforts, right? So basically for this one, even though like this person has certain kind of difficulties, but we know she never get up. All right. So in this case, if we say was no stranger to giving up, or was no stranger to getting cold feet, which means she gives up, or which means she gets cold feet. But we know she tried to challenge herself. She tried to put herself to the limit. So that's why here we say she was no stranger to pushing herself to the limit, which means she pushed herself to the limit. All right? And standing a good chance, which means she had a good chance. But as we know, probably she still had certain kind of difficulty in her life. And her life was never an easy one. So probably for this one, A, probably still not good here, especially in the following. It starts to talk about something bad about her. So what's the next one? So for the next one, we will choose gone the extra mile. Let's take a look why this one will be the right one. So as we can see here, we know she had always gone the extra mile, which means she had always made extra efforts, or she had tried to be the best. All right, so that's why in this case we'll choose this one. So here we're not talking about the one. Here a lot of people choose the one like resisted temptation, but here we're not talking about temptation. We're trying to say that she tried to make some extra efforts. So that's why we'll choose this one, gone the extra mile, which means she worked harder. So that's why in the following, the author tried to raise example like at the age of 17, for example, she lost one of her kneecaps to an illness. However, when she was informed of this, it only inspired her more. Firstly, let's take a look at the easy one first. So we inform someone of something, or we remind someone of something. So that's why there'll be she was informed of this. And for the blank, for number 17, here we will not choose as a consequence. That's because if you choose as a consequence, which means you are talking about as a result. So there'll be something happen, and then there will be a result in the end. There will be something there will be something that happened first, and then there will be something happen after it. But as we know, gone an extra mile is not the cause of the illness, right? We just know that it tried to talk about why we say like she had always gone extra mile. That's because she tried very hard, even though she lost one of her kneecaps. So that's why in this part there'll be something more like an example rather than a result, or rather than a consequence here. Then let's move on to number 20 we have here. So for number 20 we have here, it says she has since found herself in the top 20. So I think probably we have been seeing this for a long time. So for this one, probably we will say we find someone in a kind of situation. So that will be find someone doing something, or find something done, all right? Or you put an adjective behind. So that's why in this case, we will say find. She has found herself. In this case, she finished in, or she ended in the top 20. So here should be an kind of an active voice. So that's why we use finishing. Okay, finishing. And let's go back to number 14. All right. Some people also made this kind of mistake here. So for number 14, we have here is she thought if she could strive to position beside this one. So in this case, we choose strive, which means she worked very hard to get that, all right? Here, we don't use the word succeed, because if you want to use the word succeed, usually we'll say succeed in doing something, okay? You can take a look here, succeed in doing something, all right? If you say succeed to, there will be something like this. Succeed to something. So for example, probably, although it sounds bad, but probably once your grandparents kind of pass away, you will succeed to his or her property. Oh, sorry. So for example, probably I think probably there will be a good example. For example, like when the king is still passed away anyway. When the king, is this the right one? I don't know. Anyway, there'll be something like this. So like when the king passed away, the princess will succeed to his throne or to his crown or to his kingdom or territory. All right. So there'll be something like this. Okay? This was really weird. How to write this one? I think. Yeah. Like this. All right? So that's roughly about this part. Then let's move on to part 3, fill in the blanks. So for filling the blanks, here let's take a look at the first one we have here. The first test award is a 1.5 kilometer swing. So here in this blank, we choose endurance. Endurance, which means something you have to endure, something you had to bear, or something you had to kind of try very hard to kind of be with it. And there will be the kind of endurance. In this case, we don't choose J, path, because for running, when we are talking about the path, we are talking about track, okay, T-R-A-C-K. So probably I can write down the word here. So that's why if you know the playground, like outside of campus, we call the place which is track and field. So when we are talking about that, we are using the word track, okay, track. All right. Then let's move on to the next one. For number 25, we have here. So it is critical to stay. So stay, for this word, you can say I stay happy, stay home. So probably you can put an adjective and also an kind of adverb here, all right? But here, we can think about probably A will not be a good one. If you really want to use endurance here, probably you'll say it's critical to stay in endurance or to stay with something. So here probably we'll choose an adjective here. So for number 25, here we use the adjective which is hydrated, which is means something about water. So probably you have to keep yourself inside with water, all right? And to avoid this kind of muscle cramps. And then as they ride, the triathletes might also snack on. So we are talking about snack. So usually, if you know, for some athletes, for some sportsmen, they will try to eat the kind of protein bars, okay, protein bars. So that's why here we choose F, all right, protein. I don't think well, someone like to have hydrated bars, right? So there'll be protein bars. And then for number 27, that's because they continue on the path, okay, on the way, on the path, on the route toward the finish line. So here, path just like on their way to success, on their route to success. And here, we don't choose the word stress. So when you feel the pressure, when you feel the stress, we'll say under the stress, okay, under the stress. So we use the preposition under the stress. All right? So then, for the next one, for number 18, it's quite straightforward. So for number 18, such what on the body requires constant nourishment to keep it going. So this kind of physical stress, such, so we know such, behind, there must be a noun. So that's why we use the word stress. So such kind of physical stress on the body require constant nourishment to keep it going, all right? So that's why For number 28 here, we choose stress. All right, so that's roughly all the questions you might have here. Then let's move on to part 4 for reading comprehension. So basically, I underline each answer with different colors. So for number 32, a lot of people make the mistakes for this one. So for which of the following is not true about the Barkley marathons? So the founder was inspired by a prison escape. So as you can see, about a prison escape in which a prisoner covered these kind of things, all right? So you can see the one in green color. And for number 32 again, for B, so in 2019 alone, 15 runners completed the race. But as you can see here, because here it says has been, so which means what? So far. So probably from the past until now, only 15 people completed the race. So it's about the tenses, all right? It's not about completed, all right? So it's not just in 2009 alone, all right? Then for the 1C, runner must cover 160 kilometers within 60 hours. So that's why in the very first beginning, we know probably it was just like 55 hours and then scheduled job that could cover at least 160 kilometer in the time. So he made a course and put a 60-hour time limit on participants, all right? And as we know, overall, the passage did not mention anything about food. So basically, food is not provided for runners. Otherwise, the article will say something like this somewhere. Then for part 5 here, so what does the introduction to this website not mention, all right? So basically, the one in purple will be the advantage, like they will provide motivation to achieve your goal, to help you achieve your goal, or they will also raise money for some good things as well. And also prizes for running, there will be an OSA medal. And also there will be some suggested places, like you can run anywhere if you see the one in green color, or around your neighborhood, and also on a treadmill as well. And the last one is quite difficult, I know, but basically we know this kind of app or this kind of website is trying to keep your motivation, right? So basically, which means those people who has kind of low motivation or has no motivation for running, probably they'll be their target audience. So for A, teenagers with passion for sports, then probably they will not be the answers. And retired senior, we know they will have a lot of time, so definitely they will have time to do the exercise as well. And kids full of energy, we know they will just be running all the time. So that's why C, office workers on a tight schedule, probably they have to register for this kind of website, and they will help them to motivate themselves, to keep a schedule, and to help them to do some regular exercise. In this case, they'll be running. All right. So that's roughly all the questions probably you will have for this test. So if you still have any other question, you can also just leave your comment, leave your question on the board of our classwork, and I will answer the questions over there. All right. So